There was a food delivery guy in an old house. He delivered groceries to the residents of the house who had long since left their apartments. One day, when a food delivery man was delivering orders, he noticed that the light was on in one of the apartments. He decided to look inside and find out who lives there. Opening the door, food delivery man saw that the apartment was completely destroyed. Leftovers were strewn across the floor, and the walls were covered with mold and cobwebs. There was an old TV in the corner of the room, which was working without sound. The food delivery man decided to inspect the apartment and find the tenants. He went through the rooms and found that they were all empty. In the bedroom, he found a note saying that the tenants had left because of the strange happenings taking place in the house. Food delivery man felt a chill run down his spine, but his curiosity got the better of him. He decided to go around the rest of the apartments to see if there was anything else strange. On the second floor, he came across another apartment with the door ajar and went inside. As soon as he entered, the door slammed shut behind him with a deafening bang. The light began to flicker, and he felt the air in the room become thick and heavy. He heard faint but clear whispers, as if someone was speaking directly into his ear. The words were unintelligible, but their intonation was menacing. There was a table in the center of the living room with an old, battered book on it. Cautiously approached it and opened it. Pages were filled with strange symbols and drawings reminiscent of scenes from nightmares. Suddenly, he felt something cold and sticky touch his shoulder. Turning around, he saw a dark, faceless figure stretching its bony arms towards him. The food delivery man felt a surge of terror, tried not to panic. He took a step back, not taking his eyes off the dark figure. The figure remained motionless, but its presence caused him a chilling fear. Suddenly, the lights in the room stopped flickering and went out, leaving him in total darkness. Cold sweat streamed down his face. He heard a thud and a rustle, as if someone or something was moving in the next room. He knew he had to get out of the apartment as soon as possible. Feeling around the walls for an exit, he came across a switch and flipped it. The light came on again, and he noticed that the figure had disappeared. He breathed a sigh of relief, but his relief was short-lived. When he turned around to leave the room, he saw the words written in blood on the wall, "You're next." Panic began to take hold of him again. He quickly headed for the exit, but the door was locked. Suddenly, dark streams began to ooze from under the door, forming inscriptions on the floor. It was written on them, "Look in the mirror." The delivery man turned around and noticed an antique mirror hanging on the wall. As he got closer, he saw his reflection, but realized with horror that the faceless figure was standing behind him. The food delivery man felt fear gripping his mind. He tore his gaze away from the mirror with difficulty and tried to calm down. He knew he had to find a way out of this sinister apartment. But how? He gathered all his willpower into a fist and slowly turned towards the figure. She didn't move, but her presence was palpable. The deliverer decided to act quickly. He abruptly rushed to the door and tried to open it, but it remained locked. At that moment, he heard a strange sound coming from an old TV in the corner of the room. The screen was blinking, and images began to appear on it. These were recordings made inside the apartment showing previous tenants. He had seen them also face the same horror that he was facing now. They tried to escape, but to no avail. Suddenly, a message appeared on the screen. "Only way out is in the basement." The deliverer realized that he had to follow this hint. He quickly scanned the room, looking for a way to the basement. Finally, he found a hidden trapdoor under the carpet. Opening the hatch, he saw steep wooden steps leading down. He took a flashlight with him and began to descend. Descending, he found himself in a damp and dark basement, the walls of which were covered with mold. He smelled a musty smell and heard soft footsteps behind him. He quickly turned around and shone his flashlight into a dark corner, but saw no one. As he continued to move forward, he noticed an old rusty cupboard in the corner of the basement. When he opened it, he found that there was another door inside. It looked like it hadn't been opened in decades. The food delivery man sighed and with an effort opened the old door, the creak of which echoed through the basement. Beyond the door, he found a long, narrow corridor lit by a dim, flickering light. He began to move forward cautiously, trying not to make too much noise. Rustles and soft sounds still came from the darkness, increasing the tension. Walking down the corridor, the delivery man found himself in front of a massive wooden door with metal inserts. There was an inscription carved on the door: "Courage will open the way for you." He knew there was no other way out, and with a deep breath he opened the door. Behind the door was a large room with a round table in the center. On the table was a map of the house, places marked with red crosses. On the walls of the room hung photographs of the previous tenants, all with sad and frightened faces. There was an antique clock in the corner, which was ticking with a frightening monotony. The delivery man walked over to the table and studied the map carefully. He realized that the crosses indicated the places where the previous residents had been found unconscious. Food delivery man felt his heart beat faster when he realized that the crosses on the map indicated the places where the previous residents had been found unconscious. He looked at the photographs on the walls and saw faces full of fear and despair. At that moment, he heard a faint sound like crying coming from the far corner of the room. As he got closer, he noticed a little girl curled up in a ball and trembling with fear. She was sitting on the floor, her back pressed against the wall, and her eyes were wide with horror. She was wearing dirty clothes, her hair was disheveled, and her face was smeared with dust. "Hey, are you okay?" The delivery man asked quietly, coming closer to the girl. She raised her head, didn't say a word. Her lips were trembling, and her eyes expressed an extreme degree of paranoia. It seemed like she couldn't trust anyone. He slowly crouched down in front of her, trying not to scare her anymore. "My name is Jacob," he introduced himself. "I came here to help. We'll find a way out of here together, okay?" The girl didn't answer, but her gaze became less wary. Jacob realized that she needed help, and he had to get her out of this terrifying place. He held out his hand to her, and after a few long seconds, trembling, she put her small palm in his. "We'll find a way out," Jacob repeated, trying to speak as softly and calmly as possible. "You have to trust me." They slowly got up and started walking back down the hallway, Jacob holding the girl's hand, trying not to let her go. Every rustle and sound made her flinch, but he continued to move forward confidently, not allowing fear to take hold of him. When Jacob and the girl reached the stairs leading from the basement, they heard a loud knock coming from afar. The sound echoed down the corridor, making the walls tremble. The girl tightened her grip on Jacob's hand, her eyes widened in fear. Quickly picked her up in his arms and hurried up the stairs. When they reached the ground floor, they saw that the front door was locked and covered with cobwebs. Jacob tried to open it, but the door wouldn't budge. He realized that they needed to find another way out. Suddenly, he noticed an antique telephone on a table in the corner. Phone was not connected. Suddenly it rang. Jacob cautiously went to the phone and picked up the receiver. A whisper came from the speaker, "Exit through the attic." He hung up the phone and looked back at the girl. She nodded softly, confirming that they should follow this instruction. Going up to the second floor, they found a trapdoor leading to the attic. Jacob opened it and helped the girl up. The attic was dark and dusty, with a low ceiling and cobwebs hanging from the beams. In the corner of the attic, he noticed an old wooden staircase leading to a small window. They slowly walked over to the window and tried to open it, but it was blocked from the outside. Jacob began frantically searching for something with which to break the glass. At this time, the girl, huddled in a corner, saw an old iron rod lying on the floor. She handed it to Jacob. He took the rod and hit the glass hard. The glass shattered and fresh air rushed into the room. Jacob helped the girl out through the window and then climbed out himself. They ended up on the roof and descending the fire escape finally reached the ground.